In this video, we want to show you what life is like here in Russia under sanctions in 2025, because everything here changes all the time. It's really hard to keep up. We want to share with you how life under sanctions affects average people like you and I in their everyday life. So let's start with essentials. By now, we all know exactly why sanctions were introduced on Russia. In fact, there's been over 24,000 sanctions introduced on Russia from over 50 countries, meaning it has more sanctions than the next 6 most sanctioned countries combined.
So, by the way, we're filming this video in Sochi, which is a city in the south of Russia on the Black Sea coast. But on this trip in particular, we've been in Moscow, St. Petersburg, Sochi, and then also over in Siberia, in Kemerovo, Novosibirsk, Prokopyevsk, and the small town of Taiga. So what we're showing in this video isn't exclusive to Sochi. We know this is the situation throughout Russia. And on that note, let's head inside Magnit Extra, this massive supermarket here on the edge of town.
Magnit is a typical supermarket chain found all over Russia. So let's take a look what's on the shelves today and what has changed.
One thing that I always find quite funny, and you see a lot online at the moment, is this idea that the shelves in Russia are all empty and that there's no products left. For someone who's travelled to Russia a lot over the past 11 years, I can say that's not the case, and it's not the case now under sanctions either. And to be honest, walking around supermarkets, there's just as many international products as there were before. Even products that have officially left the country, you can still find in many places, and that includes here in Sochi as well as over in Siberia. Some of these products have just changed their names or rewritten the labels into Cyrillic. For example, Nescafe, Tresemme, Persil or Dove, and other brands haven't changed anything at all. In fact, food imports and exports to and from Russia were one of the main things that haven't been sanctioned as of 2025, and any brands that did leave were unilateral decisions.
As you can see, the shelves are not empty. There's probably too much stuff, more than you need, same as everywhere. There was a massive deal about one specific brand leaving Russia, which is Coca-Cola. But basically what happened, pretty much the next day, Russian company got the rights to the factories where Coca-Cola was made and the recipe. And the same thing is being made just under a different label. So now, Coca-Cola is Dobry.
Prices for essentials have increased over the past few years, with inflation remaining high. But as of now, the selection of products in the shops and the amount of people shopping doesn't seem to have changed a great deal.
Traveling to Russia has changed a lot over the last few years, there is no doubt about it. There's a lot to think about and consider, everything from visa process, how to get inside the country, and actually what to expect when you're there. Which is exactly why Matt and I spent weeks collating all of our knowledge about how to travel to and within Russia into a survival kit for you to download. It's full of practical advice and information that you won't find anywhere else online on how to travel Russia safely right now and what to expect. Also, on top of that, as a native Russian speaker and Matt, who is completely fluent in Russian, we created a Russian language survival kit, which has all the language basics you need to travel to any Russian-speaking countries. It has both video and written content. So if this is something you're interested in, we're currently running a special deal until the 9th of April, where you can purchase both of those kits, whether as a package or separately, depends on you, at a special price. You can head to our website, we will leave the link in the description box or down in the pinned comment section.
Все. Да, все. Хватит, да? Так, еще, да? Да. 1400, 1500.
Хорошего дня.
Talking of food, there's been some rebranding. Inside the supermarkets we were in, there is actually a Burger King, which is one of the only major fast food chains to have remained in Russia, alongside Papa John's Pizza and Subway. Of the others, KFC officially exited the Russian market. Its name changed to Rostix, and famously McDonald's changed to Вкусно и точка. Many international shops have also left, for example, Zara and Lego. But others have, despite officially leaving, seemed to change their names and kept selling the same products. And others haven't left whatsoever.
Okay, let's talk about money. And there's nowhere else we can start really but with SWIFT. In 2022, Russia was cut off of the SWIFT payment system, which is the payment system that facilitates transactions all over the world. So for example, if we were in Thailand and I tap my British card, the payment would go through to my British bank via SWIFT and then come back to Thailand to say to the operator that, yep, the payment's gone through. That means that Russian cards with almost immediate effect stopped working anywhere across the world, certainly if they had Visa or MasterCard. However, within Russia, nothing really changed. So people would still earn money onto their Russian accounts, and internally within Russia, even if they had a Visa or a MasterCard, as well as perhaps a Mir card or a Union Pay card, they would tap it here in Russia and it will still work. Quite honestly, for people that live within Russia, they earn money from a Russian company, their wages go into their Russian account and they spend it in Russia. The situation hasn't changed that much. I guess the one caveat to that is that prices have gone up over the past few years. However, inflation's also really high within the country and it's fluctuated over the past few years. But with that, wages have gone up too. Quite honestly, I think whether prices have gone up quicker than wages, we can't really tell you. And also Russia's so big, I think it's so regionally dependent. Actually, early on in 2022 and maybe even into 2023, it was still possible for Russians that have certain accounts to use their cards abroad because many opened Union Pay accounts, which is the Chinese payment system and effectively their version of Visa or MasterCard, or also some of the Russian Mir cards, which is their version of Visa or MasterCard, did work in certain countries, for example, Turkey, Armenia, and some of the Central Asian countries. However, I think all of these loopholes are now closed with the onset of secondary sanctions being threatened against these countries. So, for example, Turkey was told that it shouldn't be accepting the Mir card because that violates sanctions, so they just cut it off from their banking system completely. So nowadays, for Russians that are travelling abroad for any reason, there's a few methods that you can get money out of the country. The first one is the most obvious, which is the good old-fashioned cash method. A lot of Russians will bring wads of cash now when they're going abroad, especially for an extended period of time. The other method is quite shady. It's by using crypto, but you can't use any of the mainstream crypto exchanges. You can only, from Russia, use certain slightly dodgy ones, to say the least, in order to get your money onto the crypto market, and then you would draw it out the other side through maybe one of the major exchanges. And the third method is something called Corona Pay, which is basically the Russian version of Western Union or MoneyGram. And this is actually what we used to use up until June 2024. Because I think now, perhaps all over the world, but certainly from North America and Europe, this is now banned. So before we would send money from our British cards onto Corona Pay, and then we would put in the name of the person who would collect it on the other side. So for example, Julia's name or my name, and then you go to a bank here in Russia and you could get the cash out and then put it onto your Russian card. So it was quite a simple method, just like Western Union. And that's what we say, that things change all the time here. And I think if you're living here and you are traveling abroad a lot, or conversely, if you're living in Russia and you're earning money from abroad, so effectively anyone that needs to get money in or out of the country, you really have to keep your ear to the ground all the time because things are just changing non-stop. So to sum up, I think if you're inside of Russia, you're earning money in Russia, you travel in Russia, and you stay within the country, life, perhaps in terms of finances and money, hasn't changed all too much. It's when you try and leave Russia or you need to transfer money in or out of the country that things have now become complicated.
On that note, many people seem to think that there are no international flights to and from Russia. It's not really the case. The flights between Russia and Europe, North America, Japan and South Korea have been stopped, but you can still fly internationally to many countries like Turkey, China, the UAE, Armenia, Georgia. Turkey seems to be the hub right now. The flights are literally non-stop from Istanbul to all over Russia, especially if people are coming from the West. It seems like Turkey is the main point of transfer. With that, although you can still fly, it became a little more complicated, as Matt mentioned, with cards. And if you're going to North America or all the places I listed above, you need to look at different routes to get there, and it can become complicated and quite pricey. So the internal tourism in Russia is going for a boom. We're currently in Sochi, and I was talking to my mom because she lives here, and she said it used to be quite seasonal, so people would come here to ski in the winter and enjoy the sun and the sea in the summer. Now it seems like the season is just all year round. It doesn't stop. The weather is miserable now, but there are still so many tourists and so many people around. Also, as a Russian, you can still get Schengen visas. Certain countries stopped giving them out, but it's still possible to get a tourist visa if you do want to go to Spain, for example, or Italy. Another important aspect of life, which is important nowadays, I guess, and the situation that keeps changing all the time, social media. So in 2022, the Russian government labeled Facebook and Instagram extremist organizations, and the access to them has been banned. Facebook wasn't really that popular in Russia, but Instagram was, and in reality people are still using it just through VPN. The same with Twitter or X. It is banned, but people are still using it through VPN. Interestingly, Chinese social media TikTok is currently restricted in Russia as well, and the big changes are with YouTube. So Google and the Russian government has been locked in disagreement for a while now. The Russian government sued Google for crazy amount of money, so now YouTube is not banned, but the speed has been severely repressed. So no one really knows what is going to happen. The government keeps saying that they won't ban YouTube, but anything can happen. Russian creators that have been using those platforms to create their content and get paid currently can't do that because those companies are based overseas outside of Russia, and the payment would have to come through SWIFT payment system. As Matt mentioned, it's currently not possible, so people have been opening bank accounts in friendly countries like Kazakhstan and receiving their money through there. Or alternatively, some people have been moving to VK videos or RuTube, which is a Russian version of YouTube. For many people there is still a need to stay on YouTube because they're not creating content only for Russians. There are people all over the world who speak Russian and would like to see content from all those people. So currently they're looking at ways on how to keep up with the monetization and the current situation.
So let's talk about what all this means for foreigners coming to Russia in 2025. By the way, this is an incredibly complicated topic and there's a lot to cover here. So we're going to cover the key points, but I've also written an entire document guide on what it's like to be in Russia here as a foreigner in 2025. And if you're interested in coming to this country and what that involves, then look at the link in the description below and download the guide. We've gone into every bit of detail that we possibly could in that guide, so check it out. Obviously, the main thing to bear in mind is that Russia's been switched off from the SWIFT system, which means if you're coming to the country, your cards will not work here. You'll have to bring cash with you, or if you have friends inside the country, get money off them. That also comes with its nuances. For example, if you're traveling from a European Union country into Russia over land, for example Estonia, and you have euros on you, they can be confiscated on the Estonian side of the border because they don't want euros coming into Russia. As I said, there's a lot changing, there's a lot going on, and that's why we wrote a document instead, because we won't go into all the details in this video. But another few key points are, how do we book hotels? People often ask us, and we usually book through something called Ostravok. Airbnb and Booking.com have been shut off now in Russia, so you can use Ostravok, and actually it's one of the only sites you can still use your international card on, and that's because they've opened a base, I think, in Cyprus as well. The last point we're going to mention in this video about foreigners coming here is the SIM card situation, because that's changed as of January the 1st, 2025, I think. And basically, as a foreigner coming here now, it's incredibly complicated to get yourself a SIM card. It used to be the case that you could just rock up at any SIM card place, for example MTS, Megafon, and you could open an account really simply just with your passport and your visa. But now there's a lot of steps involved, which again we've listed in that guide. It is possible, it's just very complicated. Certain things are becoming more complicated, certain things are actually becoming simpler. And on that note, one last point I wanted to make was if you do bring cash into the country, it's really simple to open a bank account inside of Russia, which is what most foreigners do when they come here. You can either go to Sberbank or Tinkoff, one of these banks, and say you want to open an account, and within half an hour you'll have a Russian bank card and you can upload all of that cash that you brought into the country onto that and use it internally in Russia. But once again, your Visa, MasterCard, American Express, whatever you have will not work inside of the country right now.
Three years on, but somehow it feels that we're still living in the reality of 2019. Look, the reality is that for an average person, life hasn't changed that much. It changed a lot for people who work with the West. It's a lot more difficult to go abroad. Prices have gone up, but there was a lot of speculations and unknown at the start of 2022. We as people adapt very quickly, and things become a new norm, and I guess you forget sometimes without thinking how things used to be. This video is not about us sharing our opinions. If you've been watching our channel for a while now, you know what we're like as people and what we believe in. It's about just showing what we see and sharing how life is right now, well, as much as it's possible. Hope you found this video interesting, and thanks for watching.